Hello and welcome to the Pinstripe Post. My name is Ryan Sampson. Today is Tuesday, May 21st. The New York Yankees swept the Chicago White Sox. After winning 7 straight, they dropped last night, Monday night's game against the Mariners. But we're here to talk about Yankees baseball here on Tuesday with Joel Sherman. Joel, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Ryan, yourself?
I'm doing well. And I want to start off with our first pitch. The first topic here, the starting rotation for this New York Yankees team has been absolutely incredible. We have talked about this rotation, the potential it's had all season long, even before the season started. You have mentioned repeatedly that there are multiple all-stars the way they built this rotation and put it together, but health is a key factor. Joel, even with the way they've been performing lately, are they performing even better than you expected this far in the season?
Oh, way better. Because last year, almost every one of these guys had trouble with either health or temperament or production. And so you had that. I always like to remind people, like especially of the fan base, what they were thinking about the team, right? How did you feel about it when the Yankees missed out on Yamamoto? Oh, how they you got to go get Snell or Montgomery, right? Like otherwise, Hal Steinbrenner isn't trying anymore
Yeah.
if he doesn't do that. And then it's like, oh, Dylan Cease got traded. How did they not get Dylan Cease? And they're sitting here. I think they're second in the majors in rotation ERA, top in the American League. And I think whatever the 100th percentile performance would be, it's the 100th percentile because first it starts with health. Once Cole goes down, the Yankees really can't. I mean, they would have figured something out, but the next guy who would go down suddenly has you into Cody Petit or Will Warren or Clayton Beater or someone like that. And the 5 guys, many of whom had health issues last year, have stayed healthy. That's number one. You're a third of the way through the season. The first thing that had to happen with Cole out is the other 5 guys stay healthy. Then the second thing is the offense is going to be better with Soto. Can those 5 guys persistently give the Yankees a chance to win a game? They've played about 50 games. I think the only time that the starter truly didn't give him a chance to win was Rodon in Camden Yards. That's one time all season. And then can they perform up to their capabilities? And I think it's a point we made on the first show, which was, in the previous 2 seasons, 22 or 23, Stroman, Rodon, and Cortez had been all-stars at some point in one of those 2 seasons. So you weren't asking these guys, hey, remember in 2005 when you were an all-star? It had happened recently. Can they perform up to it? Well, those 3 guys have performed, if not at full all-star level, at above average. And then the 2 best starters on the team have been Clark Schmidt and Luis Gil. And I just don't know that you could have seen. Maybe you could have convinced yourself that Clark Schmidt, after showing himself that he could last a full season as a starter, as he did last season, there would be another step. But it feels like 2 steps, especially now that he's kind of broken through this third time through the lineup, 5th, 6th inning thing, and has gone around. And Luis Gil is one of the Rookie of the Year front runners. He might be one of the Cy Young Award front runners. If Garrett Cole was having Luis Gil's season, we would go, oh, he's having Garrett Cole's kind of year. It's in Luis Gil. It feels, I wrote this over the weekend. I was at the game on Saturday when Gil pitched. And in kind of like a magical moment, Orlando Hernandez threw out the first pitch. And then Gil broke his Yankee rookie record for strikeouts after the game. And I have a longstanding, very good relationship with El Duque. I loved covering him. I loved talking to him. And I saw him after the game, and he said, Luis Gil, special. And he meant it, like special. And Cole has said the same thing. There are not a ton of pitchers in baseball who can win consistently over the plate. Hitters are great. You have to trick them. And Gil has pitches to trick them. His changeup, which is, I hate to keep sub-referencing. How many fans are, Brian Cashman doesn't know what he's doing. Brian Cashman traded Jake Cave for Luis Gil, right? He had a 40-man roster crunch with Jake Cave, how to get him off the roster. The Twins had a 19-year-old in the Dominican Summer League in Gil who they thought threw hard and had a slider, but they didn't think really had the capabilities to learn a third pitch and had some wildness issues. They thought he was a relief pitcher, and they traded him to Yankees. Well, his third pitch is his changeup. He's learned it might be his best pitch, and his fastball and his slider are superb. How many innings can he give them this year? If it's nothing but a tag team to Cole, what a success story. If it's more than that, he might be the game 2 starter in a playoff series right now over those veterans
Right.
behind Cole. So I think this is the 100th percentile outcome for this rotation is what they've done so far.
And ultimately, Joel, that's the follow-up to this is sustainability, right? Can this continue the rest of the year? Because we saw what Marcus Stroman last year, he put together a really good season until he started breaking down. Injuries did plague him a little bit there. So you wonder about him. Nestor Cortez, can he keep this up? And Carlos Rodon seems to have found his old ways like he was with the Giants, and he feels more comfortable. He says he's more comfortable here in New York, and he feels like he's actually a Yankee now. So that's my follow-up is, do they have the sustainability with this rotation and what you've seen thus far?
So this will sound like I'm taking a shot, and I am not taking a shot. The Yankee starters will now pitch worse the rest of the year. They will have worse health the rest of the year. It's just history.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that this entire rotation is going to pitch to a 2-something ERA. And so if they're going to even pitch to, say, a 3.4 ERA as a group, which you would have, where would you have signed up for that?
Absolutely.
On March 28th? It means they have to pitch to like a 4-something maybe to get there. Can these 5 guys keep staying healthy? We're gonna, it was like a bit of a pipe dream when you guys first wanted me to answer this question a few weeks ago about like who comes out of the rotation when Cole comes back. And I'm like, that's so far from now. Like, why? Well, now it's probably, I still think Cole hasn't gotten up on a mound against hitters yet. I think that's coming in the next few days.
Yep.
And I think that he hasn't obviously gotten into a game. It feels July 1st now, because if he has to go through something that looks like a spring training, that's traditionally 6 starts in spring training, even if I cut it to 5.
It's a full month.
It's a month. So we're at the end of May. It's July 1st. So I still would say a lot's going to happen in the next 35-ish, 40 games. It's another quarter of the season until he gets back. Having said that, we are getting closer to that potential moment. And where do the Yankees sign up to have that very difficult decision? Because it means that these guys continue to stay healthy and pitched well. I think it's not a shot. It just feels inconceivable that they will.
Yeah, I think that goes without saying, Joel. I think even like to your point, if you pitch to a 3.4, even a 3.5 ERA's rotation, let's say this next month until Garrett Cole comes back, this offense has been so impactful and is producing at an all-time right now with Judge and Soto and Stanton. I mean, these guys are raking right now. You can get by with those kind of numbers as your rotation, but what you're getting right now has been absolutely superb. And you have to give credit to Matt Blake and what he's been able to do with this starting rotation and get some of the best out of these guys. To your point, Schmidt and Heel, those guys have taken the next step. But Joel, I want to move on to our next topic here. Let's do up. It's where we're going to list 3 things here. And obviously the Yankees, they're making their mark here in the AL. They have the best record in the American League right now. My question to you is if you were to pick 3 teams right now that are the biggest threat for the Yankees, if they're going to make a run and win this AL pennant, who are those 3 teams you're looking at?
Yeah, I think number 1 stands out is the Orioles. I do think the Orioles are exceptional. I think the Yankees will be hard challenged to win the division. I think that both Baltimore and the Yankees, again, Dave Dombrowski was on the podcast, which will be dropping later today, but I did it this morning with John Heyman, the show, and I talked to him. They have the best record in the National League. The Yankees have the best record in the AL. And if I were looking at his group with some remove, it feels a little bit like the Yankees. They're doing almost everything well, but you can make an argument they could kind of use another reliever where you would feel most comfortable. I think you'd probably say that about the Yankees. And Dave Dombrowski said something interesting. He said, I could probably do it. But he goes, the risk as a veteran executive is in the next 8 weeks, something else is going to happen. And I'm going to need to fix that by July 30th. And I don't know what that is yet. And if I fire my bullets today, I might not be able to fix what will end up being a bigger problem in the next 8 weeks. And so I look at the Yankees and Orioles today, who I think are the best teams in the American League as we stand here now. And I think they both need bullpen guys. And I think both have good farm systems and motivated front offices to go out and get that. So, but will other issues spring up for them? So I'm curious about that. I think there's a really good team with the Rangers that we haven't fully seen yet because they have so many starting pitchers hurt. And Corey Seager hasn't played like Corey Seager yet. And I think Corey Seager is in his prime and is still going to be one of the 5 toughest outs in the sport. So I think we will hear from Texas before it's all said and done. And if I had to pick a third team, I would almost like to pick the team the Yankees are playing right now because Seattle has such good starting pitching. How about this for an amazing thing? All that stuff we said about the Yankee rotation, and they have the number 1 AL rotation, number 2 in the sport. Seattle's rotation ERA is, I think, 9th in the sport. Do you know that in the first 3 games of the series, the Mariner starter has a lower ERA than the Yankee starter?
Wow.
And in the 4th, Luis Gil was slightly better than Luis Castillo. So the Mariners have an incredible strength. What they don't have is a good lineup, even though they kind of put it on Clay Holmes in the 9th yesterday. Are they the kind of team that will be, hey, let's go get Pete Alonso. Let's go get Luis Robert. This is a team, remember, they've made the playoffs 1 time since 2001, which is also the last time they won the AL West. There's 30 teams in the major leagues. There's one of those 30 teams that has never played in the World Series. That's the Seattle Mariners. At some point, to me, and the only time they made the playoffs since 2001, they made a big in-season trade to beat the Yankees for Luis Castillo. The Yankees were the runner-up there. To me, they should be the most motivated buyer of an offensive player at the trade deadline. Will they be with a president of baseball operations who talks about winning 54% of the games for 10 years? I don't know. At some point, you got to say, we got to win this year. And they have the kind of rotation that should be good for 162 games and good for short series in October. I think they should go for it. I'm not sure they're going to. So if I was going to pick a third team, I think I'd pick the Rays just because they're the Rays and they're inexplicable. And they'll end up somehow winning 92 games this year and getting in. And then
so wait, you're picking the Rays over the Mariners if you were going to pick a third team?
I am, because I believe in the Rays' institutional stuff more than I believe in the Mariners' institutional stuff.
Interesting.
Like, I feel like the Mariners could let the moment go by, and suddenly we look up on August 15th and go, wow, the Astros and Rangers have both passed them.
I could see that.
You know, and you sit there and go, how did the Mariners miss the playoffs this year? Look at the starting pitching, because they have not shown me the institutional structure, decision making, whatever that thing is,
right,
to kind of push to the end. I think it's hard to win seasons. The Atlanta Braves right now, if you watch them, they're not playing that well. And they're 10 games over 500. They are almost winning out of habit. Mm-hmm. It's like the Yankees have done this for 30 years to some degree. There's been years where the Yankees are not that good, including last year. And they ended up in the race for a while and at 82 and 80. And there were years under Girardi where they didn't make the playoffs where I'm like, this is like a 75-win team, and somehow they won 85 games. And there's teams that have that, like the Rays, and there's teams that don't, like the Mariners. And until the Mariners change that they'll change my mind.
Right, until they change that narrative, you're not going to believe until you see it. I could see that. I mean, the Rays are interesting. The last time the Yankees played them well. The Rays don't play great baseball, if that makes sense. Like, they don't.
But they started to get players back. Like,
right.
They're guys in their front office, when I've talked to them, they were like, it might not mean a lot to you, like Arundanda, Josh Lowe, Brandon Lau, but those were 3 left-hand hitters who were hurt for most of this season, and it also forced them to play guys out of position. I think they feel that by getting those 3 guys back, and they're all back now, Lau, I think, came back last night, that they're in a much better position. They're starting to get their starting pitching back. Taj Bradley came back. I think by about the All-Star break, they think they've got a shot with Jeffrey Springs. A little after that with Drew Rasmussen. That team is they had the second best record in the sport after losing both Shane McClanahan and Wander Franco last year, which was their best pitcher and their best hitter. They're inexplicable, except for they really know what they're doing and they really know how to win games.
I could see it. I mean, they're the pesky Rays. They're always in it. And to your point, they are getting healthy and they're getting guys back. One real note quick here. You didn't list any AL Central teams. No love for the Guardians or the Royals or even those Twins that the Yankees
Well,
swept last week.
that's kind of like been the Yankee secret in these last few years, is like when they do make the playoffs, then they kick the crap out of some AL Central team and then lose to the Astros or the Rays or the Red Sox, right? That division is a grade better than it's been in recent years, which is to say it's still 3 grades worse than the AL East.
Fair enough.
And a grade or 2 worse than the AL West. I admire the consistency of the Guardians. And again, if I were betting on an institution, I would bet on them to win the division. And then, it's a little David versus Goliath. Sometimes David wins, but it's going to be whether the Central team plays a West team or an East team. They're going to be considerable underdogs in the playoffs.
I agree. All right, Joel, time for Radio Irrational, where I give you a take here. And you kind of hit on this already, and that's why I'm going to be a little tame, but I want to hear what you have to say here. Luis Gil, a 14 strikeout performance. You were there. You talked to El Duque. He said that kid's special. Luis Gil is closer to winning a Cy Young than he is being moved to the bullpen. Is that a Radio Irrational take right there?
Probably more radio than rational, because, the next 100 innings are going to be much more difficult than the first 50. He's going to go into territory that's uncharted for him after not pitching at all last year. But what's coming out is, whenever you talk to the people in and around the Yankees, is the level of seriousness that he has put into his craft. We mentioned adding the changeup, not just adding it, making it an elite pitch. When he left last year after the season and after not pitching, he told the Yankee people, I'm going to come back better. And one of the things they thought he needed to do was bulk up, become a little stronger. Showed up in camp, bulked up a little stronger. In spring training, it's lost to time. He was in the first, I think they sent out 5 players on March 3rd. He was one of them. He got sent. And so they kept bringing him back because they needed pitcher. And he just, instead of sulking it out, he came back and he blew away the Yankees and the scouts who watched him during spring training, to the point it was like, well, what are we going to do about this guy? Then Cole got hurt. And again, I think it's one of the things, when Cole got hurt, there was a lot of go get Montgomery, go get Snell, make the trade for Cease. And again, in their wildest dreams, the Yankees didn't think this was who Luis Gil was, but he was encouraging the organization through his performance and his makeup, his seriousness, that he was going to be useful to them. Well, he's been more than useful. I mean, if we had a 1/3 of the season AL Cy Young, he'd probably finish in the top 5 someplace. But there's 2/3 of a season to go. And it's a great story.
Yeah.
The column I wrote off of Saturday's game was, it's forgotten to time that Orlando Hernandez was not that big a deal when the Yankees signed him. 2 years before, Livan Hernandez was a huge deal, his half-brother, and the Yankees were so pissed off that he signed with the Marlins. Then the following year in 97, they went to an awful lot of trouble, expense, traded Ruben Rivera to get Hideki Irabu, who was a much bigger deal than Hernandez. They were not even in unanimity, their front office, that they should sign Orlando Hernandez to a contract. He hadn't pitched for over a year, too. He had been banned from baseball in Cuba because they thought he was going to defect like his brother. And he was being followed around by the secret police as he ultimately defected. And he showed up in June, and it was like a gift from nowhere for them, for a team, remember, a historic team in 1998. And he turned out to be probably their best big game pitcher of that era. And he helped them win in 98. He pitches the biggest game of the season. They're down 2-1 to Cleveland in the ALCS, and he wins in Cleveland, and the Yankees never lose again. They finished out that postseason winning 7 in a row. He pitched the biggest game of the season. And I feel like, I don't want to elevate Luis Gil to Orlando Hernandez, who I think was a great pitcher, and I try not to use that word a lot. I actually think he was great for those 5-ish years for the Yankees. He's a gift from nowhere. Like, you could not have seen this coming. He didn't pitch last year, and when we last saw him, it wasn't like he was the 9th best prospect in the major leagues.
Right.
He wasn't even like the 3rd best prospect on the Yankees in any rankings. And so the kind of greatest gifts are the gifts from nowhere to some degree. And yet, because it's a gift from nowhere, if you're asking me about Radio Irrational, I'm like, it's a great story if you can make it to the finish line, but if you and I were kind of trying to figure out like what would the odds be of him making it to the finish line in this way, it wouldn't be great. But then again, neither would the first third of the season.
Right. And I think that's more of a testament to him and his ability and his character. And to your point, showing up to camp a little more strength in him. And like you said, didn't sulk when he got sent out, give him the ball. Hey, I'm ready to go. Garrett Cole goes down. I'm ready to step in the rotation and show the world that I got stuff and I'm going to shove. And he has shoved, and it's been incredible to watch. He's been one of my favorite pitchers to watch. Just to remind, El Duque was one of my favorite pitchers growing up. I loved El Duque. He was such a good pitcher. He was awesome.
Keep rubbing it in that you were growing up and I was already covering baseball. But go ahead.
Well, speaking of growing up while you were covering baseball, let's bring in Tommy Hogan for Hoganalytics.
Let's go younger.
Yes, exactly. Before we get started, Joel, I want to thank you on behalf of the Pinstripe Post viewers for giving us a sneak peek of the Pascal Perez and the Mel Hall stories from the doc. Doc is great.
Thank you.
All three, great. You're a bit of a performer, Joel. You're adamant with it. It's awesome.
Thank you.
It's very good.
I got into this to write, and now I look. This is my day today. Tom Thibodeau would love me. I'm given the full 48. I wrote an online column, not for the newspaper. That's about 3,500 words, or about the length of about 5 columns, right? I did the podcast this morning. I just finished doing an hour television show here at MLB Network, and now I'm doing this. Me and Josh Hart are Thibodeau kind of guys. Like, we're given the full 48. Yep. And I made a basketball reference. Go Tommy Hogan.
You're our Gold Glove utility guy this year. You cover all bases.
Utility? Come on, Hogan.
You cover them all. You cover all.
All right.
You're versatile. You've got all. You got the digital. You've got the podcast. You got TV. It's because you can play every position.
I am so Zobrist. Go ahead.
Exactly. So the Yankees, they currently have 3 of the top 14 players in the sport in WAR, Joel. Do you know the last time they finished a season? Would that being the case?
3 of the top 14?
Yes.
I would assume maybe like in 2009 it happened when they won the World Series. Is there a more like, was there some judge? I'm trying to figure it out. You win.
It's deep. 1950.
Wow.
1950 was the last time the Yankees had 3 players finish in the top 14 in the sport in WAR. Do you want to name those 3 players?
1950?
50.
So I think 51 is Mantle's rookie year, so it can't be Mantle. So DiMaggio is still playing, right? So DiMaggio, Berra, and Rizzuto.
There you go. Nailed it.
Did I actually get that?
You got it. You got it in reverse.
Utility my ass.
MVP.
Yes.
Rizzuto was actually 3rd in the sport. Yogi was 9th, and Joe DiMaggio was 13th.
Was that might have been Rizzuto's MVP season?
That I don't have, but it could be.
Yeah.
He had Eddie Stanky and Al Rosen ahead of him. And Eddie Stanky, what a name! That's when you know you're going back in baseball when you're pulling out names like Eddie Stanky.
There's a mean joke I could say right now. I won't. But Joel.
How about this? I'm an older. You want to say that, but Al Rosen was a general manager who I covered.
Okay. Very cool.
For good Giants teams.
So moving forward, now we're going to go back to present day baseball here, and I'm interested in Joel and what will be the corresponding moves. The Yankees have DJ LeMahieu and Tommy Kahnle coming back within the next week or 2. What do you think are the corresponding moves that will be made for them? Because I think it could be an interesting conversation with both of them.
So, I mean, in the short term here, let's assume Ian Hamilton will be fine and off the COVID list in the next few days. I assume Michael Tonkin gets designated for assignment, though there's something about Michael Tonkin that a lot of teams are going to take shots at him. There's something in the profile of his pitching. We've seen the Mets try twice. The Twins have tried twice with him. So Do the Yankees like him enough that they try to like send somebody down who has options? I doubt it. I assume it. I also think Canley is important as a right-hander who's devastating against lefties with his changeup, because I think we've talked about it on the show before. You're nitpicking with this version of the Yankees if you're looking for things that aren't really, really good, because they've been really good at just about everything. But, Gonzalez and Ferguson are a little like, do we want to play the left-on-left game from the seventh inning on? Canley gives Aaron Boone another option against a lefty-heavy situation with that. And with LeMahieu, I think what's fascinating is they can, again, you want to help me with pronouncing Jones's first name? Is it
Jahmai Jones?
Jahmai Jones.
Jahmai Jones. He's out of option, so again, it would have to be probably a DFA situation, or because Cabrera has options, do they send him down? What I would like about not sending down Cabrera is, first of all, how much is LeMahieu going to play it initially? So, you might want to mix and match a little. I also think by putting LeMahieu at third, and I think LeMahieu is a very good defensive third baseman, even as he struggled offensively these last 2 years. I thought he was really good there. So their defense remains strong with him. If you get second half LeMahieu from last year out of this, their long lineup becomes longer. What it also does, if you keep both Cabrera with Birdie, is it really gives you a versatile bench. And I know that the Yankees don't use that bench a ton, but in close games, if you have both of them, you could get extremely aggressive about pinch running for catchers, for Stanton, for LeMahieu, for Rizzo, and be able to, because these guys can play just about any place on the field. I will say this. If I were the Yankees and you send Cabrera down, what I would have him do at AAA is play center field every day.
That's what I was going to ask.
Because here's my thing is, if we had this discussion on February 15th or whenever the Yankees show up in spring training, I would have thought Trent Grisham was going to play a lot. He's not playing a lot, and I think an already offensively challenged player is going to probably give you very little in the way that he's playing. And now, the Yankees ended up, Verdugo and Soto are two of the most durable players in the sport, and they're playing the corner outfield. Judge has stayed healthy and Stanton stayed healthy. So when does Grisham play? To me, Grisham feels like a guy maybe you use as a second or third piece at a trade in July to go ahead and get something, for a team that needs to even just plug in the defense and hope that he gives the offense he gave in San Diego, which was low average, lots of strikeouts, but homers and walks. Maybe he like is included in a trade there. And between Cabrera and Dominguez, you have two potential center field answers if Judge were to get hurt, where you could do it. I also think Verdugo could probably move over there and do it. So if I don't think Cabrera is going to play a lot, I would put Cabrera in the minors, but not do the play third, play short, play second. I would see if he can handle center field on an average level. That kid seems to me to be kind of savant on defense. Like if you put him someplace, he'll learn how to do it. And I would try that just to give more options and make it easier if you get out of Grisham.
Trent Grisham does have options. Could he be the guy that gets sent down here? And you've seen as well that Cabrera can play left. We think Verdugo can play center. Could that be also another move that they could do here for DJ?
So it could be. You probably really lose that guy mentally. But what I would do it in my order, Tommy, which is even if I was going to send Grisham down, send Cabrera down for 2 weeks, see if he can play center field. And then you could bring him back up and send Grisham down if you think that gives you a more versatile team. I would just want to be comfortable that I could put Cabrera out there and get major league average or close to it before I kind of took Grisham off the roster. I think once you take Grisham off the roster, you probably lose him.
That could.
And before I did that, I would want to know that Dominguez is who I think is very close to getting and playing some defense, is going to be available to me sometime soon, and that Cabrera can handle the spot.
The reason Grisham hasn't performed, you mentioned it, is because he's not able to play as much as he did last year. Is there anything to the fact that sending him down to AAA would give him every day at bats, so then when he comes back up, he feels better?
Yeah, maybe, Tommy, but he's been a major leaguer now for like 4 straight years.
Yeah.
And He's not seeing that as anything but a punishment. You would like everybody to have a great attitude about it, and maybe he would. I don't know Trent Grisham well enough, but it feels like it would be the kind of slap. And I don't know if it loses value in the marketplace, but if you send him down, does it lose some value in the marketplace as well? I really imagined that he was going to play a couple of times a week when spring training started. I was thinking about this this week, is the Yankees lost Cole, and they haven't had LeMahieu, and they haven't had Tommy Kahnle. But one of the reasons they've been successful is they've been much healthier in general than in the last few years. The players who have remained have stayed remarkably healthy, including guys who historically haven't, like Stanton.
Yep.
You know, like what did we wonder about, like Rizzo, or what did we wonder about Judge? Go look at games played. Soto and Verdugo have brought a lot to the team, including that you just write their name in the lineup every day. Those guys play games. And, you know, the 5 starters have stayed healthy. The main relievers have generally stayed healthy. And the core positional group, you know, Boone, who traditionally had, you know, load management and injuries and stuff. It feels like Joe Torre. He's riding the same lineup every day. And and you wonder, will there be, I do wonder about the Judge thing a little bit in center field. If you keep sending him out there every day, you know, I get it. Stanton's performing well as the DH. I would find at least a DH game a week for Judge. Try to coincide it maybe with an off day where it's like off his feet for the game, off his feet totally with an off day, because I think the other players will preserve better than Judge. I would find a way to not play Judge in center field every day.
Which has been the value for Trent Grisham so far, is he's able to be the one to step in and you don't lose anything. If you gain something defensively in center field. If we could go back to the bullpen just for a second, I know we want to get to Notebook and get another Mel Hall story from you. But Tonkin does fill a role with the Yankees that they don't have. Now that Luke Weaver has basically become their setup guy, Tonkin has the role of being the long reliever. Could Ian Hamilton, who is on the COVID list but hasn't performed well lately, could he be a guy who does have options? Could he go down to AAA? Could it be Nick Birdie, who also has options?
I think I think Birdie's a possibility, because I think one of the things that happens, especially over the first half of the season and really the first month or two, is teams, when it comes to pitching, don't want to lose inventory. Mm-hmm. So while you could probably make an argument, the Yankees would probably rather have Birdie pitch than Tonkin. What they'd rather have is both Birdie and Tonkin available to them, right? And so you can make the argument, send Birdie to AAA, just keep Tonkin, and wait around a little bit. I was like a little surprised they brought up Clayton Andrews for this move. I wonder, is something going on? Like, I thought Marinaccio really pitched well for them when he was with the Yankees. Did he get hurt at AAA or something? I don't even.
It's very strange.
Like even weird. For a week, I would have brought him in, except for if again, is Clayton Andrews a guy you think could cover 2 or 3 innings in a way maybe you don't, like at this moment with Marinaccio? That was my thought. I wasn't at the ballpark last night, so I don't know the answer to that question.
And that's why I brought it up, Joel, because you said they don't like to lose assets. And that kind of goes along with the Jahmai Jones, the bench stuff. What are they going to do when DJ comes up? Do they not want to lose that asset? Or could they just DFA him and maybe he gets an outright to AAA rather than Tonkin, who probably will be taken?
Yes. I think anybody who could stand upright and pitch will get taken. Like, we've seen some of this. Is like Yohan Ramirez is about to pitch with his 3rd team, the Dodgers. Tonkin has pitched with 3 teams already. I mean, we wouldn't think of these guys as elite relievers, maybe not even average relievers, but they have good arms and there's something in their profile, either movement, shape, something, that teams are going to keep using them as churn guys to get through. And the Yankees would probably like to keep as much depth as possible. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was Birdie.
All right, I'm ready for another Mel Hall story now.
All right, thanks, Tommy. All right, Joel, let's bring this all home. Joel's Notebook, Bronx Zoo, crime chaos. I mean, the documentary was incredible. Like Tommy pointed out, it was a lot of fun watching. And for me and Tommy to learn a lot about what happened in that 90 season, and for you to cover it all. I asked you beforehand, before we recorded this, is there anything else about Mel Hall? Because that story is absolutely insane. And I was just thinking about how that would go about covering it present day, something like that, if that were to happen. But I wanted to ask you, is there something you would like to tell us, or another story about Mel Hall covering him that that you would like to share?
So if we're going to do this at the end of each show, I will promise you this. There'll probably be 20 Mel Hall shows if we do the 20 Mel Hall stories before we're all said and done. And all of them, most people who watch this will call bullshit on. And I'll have to bring in like Susan Waldman or Michael Kay or John Heyman or somebody else who was around to go, guys, would you like to validate that this lunatic actually did these things? So I'll tell one that I actually tell in the documentary, because I think it was I used it as a vessel to try to talk about an important moment in Yankee history. Like the documentary is about this terrible season, 1990, and how embarrassing it was for the organization on and off the field, but also how you couldn't know it in real time, but they were starting to build towards a dynasty. By the end of the decade, they'd be the team of the decade and a dynasty. And so we flash forward to 1992, which is Buck Showalter's first year as manager. And the Yankees they're still training in Fort Lauderdale, and we're on the backfields in Fort Lauderdale, and I'm standing next to Buck Showalter, who I got to know well in 90 and 91. He was a coach on the team. And so we had a good relationship, and he's letting me watch an outfield drill with him, which, again, this stuff doesn't happen anymore. I loved covering baseball then. I'm not as big a fan today. But he's standing next to me, and we're watching Mel Hall purposely fuck up a drill. I mean, he's, again, stuff like with cell cameras and stuff, nobody would even attempt today. But Mel Hall is just like lollygagging and pushing guys and certainly bothering Bernie Williams as he always did. And Buck never looks at me. He just keeps standing next to me. He never looks at me. He keeps looking straight ahead. And he goes, Joel, you can have an asshole on your team, but that asshole better be Barry Bonds. And at that moment, I realized, oh, the first thing that this manager is going to do is not addition, it's fumigation. Like that how key a moment that was for the Yankees, because Stick Michael and Buck Showalter began to weed out the bad actors, the guys who didn't care about the final score, only their performance. And that had to happen before you began to repopulate with a different kind of player who not only was maybe better on the field, but better in the clubhouse, more professional, more prepared. And I use that story as the example of, oh, Mel Hall's not going to make it over the mountaintop with this team. But it wasn't just about him. It was about 5 other guys who were on that roster who Showalter intuitively, even as a 35-year-old manager, youngest manager in the sport back then, kind of like was, you can't get to the finish line how you want with these kind of actors. And I thought it was I learned more from Buck Showalter about baseball, not just rules and how to do, but how to build a team, what he was thinking about at all times. He was always very kind to me to let me into his thought process. And for some reason, I understood in real time that he was telling me something. And it played out as him and Stick began to weed those kind of guys out.
That's interesting. That's fascinating also to see that in real time. Like something for Buck just to give you that moment of honesty. And this is how he views the personalities and how he's managing this and what he visions going forward. And that's really cool that you got to experience that. And also to your point, and what I was trying to say before with Mel Hall, it's like, imagine covering this type of thing in present day and how that would go down. And for you, how you would cover it now. And it's just a different sport. It's a different game of media. And how
we're going to do bounty hunters showing up for Mel on future episodes. We're going to do me and Mel Hall face to face, about to throw down in the old Memorial Stadium. Cause I wrote something about him that he didn't like. We're not going to run out of Mel Hall stories before we run out of show.
All right. I like it. I like it, Joel. And we appreciate you as always. Great episode, man. I love talking Yankees baseball with you, obviously. Watch this show on YouTube. Hit the like and subscribe button. Comment on what you think about what Joel had to say about the Yankees and Luis Gil and the rotation and everything else. We appreciate you as always, Joel. Thank you so much, man.
All the best, Ryan. Be well.